Welcome to Leverage a Legacy. Dr. Stephen Hobbs here with the Wealth Movement. Well, it was 2 a.m. this morning, wide awake, springing forward, and I had a deep realization that I got it backwards. You're probably wondering what. Well, I turned my light on. I grabbed my clipboard and paper and pen, which is beside my bed, because occasionally this happens. And I wrote the insights that were coming to me. And then I put the clipboard and pen to the side and turned the light off. And 5 minutes later, light on, writing on my clipboard. And I put them down, light off. And guess what? 5 minutes later, got another set of insights. I picked up the clipboard and pen and wrote and then put them down. And luckily, 5:30 rolls around and I'm cuddling my clipboard. And I went, well, okay. And then I realized what had happened. And I sort of added more to that over the coffee I had in the morning. And it's what I want to share with you, because I believe it's a wonderful story that's starting to unfold, and I want to bring it to your attention. But just before I do that, I just want to remind you to subscribe and ring the bell so that you can continue to get more Leverage a Legacy videos on Saturday mornings. And just to remind you, Leverage is about love and rage and lover and age, as it pertains to a legacy. So understand that your legacy brings forward the notion of love and in some cases rage, but legacy is very much your lover over time, and you want to play with that accordingly. And so back to this story that unfolded for me this morning, and I have some notes here that I'm going to be drawing from. What was really interesting is that I realized is that I have been putting forward this story, the story of come to know what your legacy is, so you can deal with the older that is coming upon you. Because I'm looking at 55-plus-year young professionals as part of my business here and my personal legacy. Because I'm certainly pushing the end of 60-year doors, looking at 70 here very soon. And I was, really starting to understand older, but I live a life where 70 is the new 60. Even for me, in some cases, it might be the new 50. And but this notion of legacy to older, and then looking at elder, then looking at mentor. And I said to myself, hang on a minute, I think I got this all back-assed and backwards. And that's when I started to look at, well, I think I need to take a look at older, elder, mentor, legacy. And that's the ideas. That's what sprang forward at 2 o'clock this morning. And I wrote down about 3 pages worth of notes, got up, wrote even more. With my coffees this morning in between walking the dog. It's still dark out where I live. And so I got a chance to even think a little bit more about it. And I realized that there was a deep resonance in me about unfolding this story through the older, elder, mentor, legacy pathway. And where that takes me afterwards, I'm not quite sure. We'll see, and that brings out another day of writing and reading, and I'll throw a little arithmetic in there. I have some formulas that I work with that are almost like numbers based, and so I just wanted to bring a little bit more of that, those insights to you, because I'm curious about where you are in your life, living your legacy life. And have you thought about the sense of older and elder? And have you thought about picking up the mantle of mentor? Now, what becomes really fabulous here is older elder. older with an O, elder with an E. If you flip them out, you got the words. And so when I approached older, and I'll be talking about this more with the courses that are coming out, books that are coming out, is that when I look at older, I think of circle of life, the four seasons, a portal. These are ways that I look at it, but I realized that it isn't so much a circle as it is an amoeba shape, which is very irregular circle that sort of moves. If you think of amoeba as a one-celled organism, and I sort of thought of that movement of older and what happens. And then there's this notion of elder and with the E, and I see that there's sort of three lines, sort of like the part of a ladder that you can step up and a certain like tree trunk spine and how you might climb the tree if you were to use a ladder. And that really got me thinking about, hey, what would happen if I took a look at the other vowels in the English language? And so alder, and I went, oh, right. And alder is a type of tree in the area in which I live here in Canada. And then that got me to elder, and elder is actually a tree. I associate it more with the UK, England, which is actually where I was born. So there's kind of a connection there. And then there's idler, and I went idle, not doing anything, or it could be the idler or the idle in the car and to keep it going and slowing it down a little bit. I thought that kind of interesting. And then, of course, there is this notion of older and the placing of the sense of aging in your life. And then I certainly played on. There's Yulder, and well, it doesn't really come out as a word like some of the others. I think of Yulder as you. And in my own research about life, I came to understand IQ, intelligence. And there's the notion of EQ around emotional intelligence. And then there's something called UQ, which is about conation. It's about that sort of that deep inside who you are in terms of like hunter-gatherer kind of thing like that. And the notion, are you a catalyst or are you bringing things together? And that just sort of got me going to Yudler. All right. And so I'm extending myself out there a little bit. I get that. And then there's Wilder. And when I hear that, I'm asking the question, why Wilder? But it also has a connection to rewilding. That's me. I'm by extension playing with the words. And rewilding is about reconnecting with nature and the sense of just getting your feet without your shoes on into the soil, into the grass, and just reconnecting. And there's a lot more to it in terms of animals and trees, rewilding, regeneration, that kind of idea. So that was me just playing. So if I pull back and take a look at this notion of older and elder and mentor, I started to take a look at it through a lens of me, myself, and I. And that came in yesterday. And I did a little bit of research of, why this phrase came in. And the phrase is actually can be contributed back to a song by Billie Holiday many years ago from a jazz perspective. And I'll put more notes or a connection to that. But it also plays itself out. There's psychology perspective, spirituality perspective around me, myself, and I. And I said, does that link to older, elder, mentor? And I went, that's kind of interesting. So there is a story of me as older. All right. It's me. I'm an older. I might identify as older. And then there's the story of myself as elder, where I would self-proclaim. I do my own research. it's my research myself. I research this story of elder and self-declare it. And then there's the story of I as mentor. I am a mentor, and a mentor being about a two-way trusted relationship that you have with a mentee, where the mentee can tap into your lived experience, ask you questions, you answer, and very much has a bit of an I am flavor to it. I am a mentor. And that got me thinking about different storylines that are associated with this notion of me, myself, and I, and older, elder, mentor. And then by extension, and looking at what's going on, and I'm forever interacting, looking at ways in which to have this unfold. I had to go back to the notion of change and transition. And there's many ways in which people use the word change and transition. And this is mine. I use it for illustration, for dialogue, multi-log, so that we can jump into it from that perspective. And it's a perspective that I offer you. So from an outside in, we understand about change. Change is what is happening around you. And there are different kinds of change, very broad categories down to some very smaller versions of it. But transition is your response to that change. And if you think back, I mentioned amoeba for the circle, the amoeba shape. So if change is influencing the amoeba as an organism, it is actually responding and transitioning to that environmental aspects. And I think from an older point of view, there's things that are happening to you and you're transitioning. And that's where the transitioning can come through a little bit like the eyes of the elder. So the older has you in some ways looking at a way of transitioning. Elder gives you another way, and mentor gives you another. So that got me unfolding. All right, transition. There's three types of transition. And I went, okay. So a transactional type of transition. In other words, across the actions, you sort of give and take this amoeba, the environment, your response to it. Being an older, you are in transaction with your environment, what's happening with you. Then I went, okay, so then from an elder point of view, that would be more like transformation across the form, shifting the form. So as you self-declare yourself an elder, you're moving more into this story of accepting yourself as someone who has something to share, someone because of their wisdom and their life experience and the recognition that could go with it, you could become an elder. And I know that elder is a story that's unfolding in the First Nations Indigenous world. It's also used in religious contexts. And actually, elder it finds its way into the fantasy games, these online fantasy games. And someone who's quite notable around this is doing a lot of work in it through what's called the Modern Elder Academy, is Chip Conley. And I'll put a reference to MEA below. And so from a transformation point of view, MEA is offering courses. I'm suggesting that as you self-declare yourself an elder, and the books that I'll be putting out and the courses, you can explore what it means to be an elder and go through the transformation that's associated with that. But as I mentioned, transition has three aspects to it. There's a third one, which is transcendence. And the transcendence, I think of it as sending yourself across to places you don't quite even know where you're going, but you're sending yourself there. And that's the role I think of mentor, is you don't quite know what you're going to end up encountering when you mentor, being able to answer the questions of others. You're sending yourself to some place, and it is some mystery that's associated with it. And I kind of like that sense of mentor is this involved in transcendence. And when interacting with the mentee, is offering insight and to bring that mentee through that, and how I might, as a mentor, serve those who are older to become elders, to become mentors. That's something that I'm unfolding for the world. I've spent many years as a facilitative mentor, and I've become quite practiced at it, and I enjoy it a lot as compared to something I might call an instructive coach. And I said this on a call the other day. We were talking about mentoring and coaching, and I said, well, I did not become a coach, an instructive coach, because if I did, I would tend to bring this frozen salmon out of my holster and use that to whack people up the side of the head, which isn't a great coaching technique. I think you would agree with me. But when it comes to, hang on a minute, I'm going to take the bite out there. And when it comes to being a facilitative mentor, there are times when I might pull out my guppy out of my holster and do a little whack because of drawing attention to something. So a big frozen fish versus like a salmon versus a frozen guppy. I think you can see the parallel between the instructive coach and facilitative mentor through my experience. I'm not saying that's how everyone else sees it, but I'm just using it as an illustration. And when I shared that story in the meeting the other day, there was some some pretty good laughter, and some people actually picked it up and used it as a way to explain their own techniques. And so that's wonderful. I get a chance to use one of my metaphors. Now, the other thing that comes about is that I start to take a look at the word now. And who am I now? And who do I wish to become? And I started to see something interesting here is if you actually move the letters around in now, you can get own and one. And I said, oh, interesting. And I went, well, what would happen is if I'm an older now, I could become an elder and own that process as I come to being a mentor who's won whatever it is that I won. I'm not using one here in the sense of a competition with others or anything, but I've won that race for myself. I've gotten to a place where I truly can appreciate my life as an elder. I'm interacting with others and being of assistance, being in service. I've won that aspect of my life. And I thought that that was kind of interesting as well. And then the last one that I'll share on the call today is this notion of if I'm an older, it would be important for me to reimagine what that is about. And that leads me to elder, mentor, and into legacy. And then I went, okay, if I'm going to reimagine my life as an older and deal with the issues that might go with that, and being a 55 plus year old professional, that's who I'm looking to work with. And having gone through it myself, I realize there's a lot of issues that come about. And yes, there's the aging and the physical fatigue and mental fatigue that comes with that. That's if you don't do something around from a physical mental point of view. But I also realized in there is that there are some broken relationships that have taken place in your life, and they're a bit of a loss or burden around that. Maybe even a bit of a loss of control of who you are and how you unfold your life. But more important, I think there's an aspect of an awareness of, I think I'm ill prepared for what's coming in my next 50, and I'm unfocused. I don't know what I would want to improve or focus or strengthen in my life. So there's a lot that's happening at 55 when you turn your attention from, yes, I'm becoming older. And that's why I use the phrase years young, 55 plus years young, not 55 plus years old. So that's me being aware. I'm offering it to you, is that you start to shift this notion of older and you go, oh, hang on a minute, what would happen if I became an elder? So then to reframe your life, your living life through an elder lens. And I went, okay, reimagine older, reframe elder. And that got me thinking about what would happen if I rescript my life as a mentor, sharing my wisdom, sharing from my lived experience, answering questions. I went, well, that's great. If I was to sort of bring verbs and nouns together, again, it would be reimagine older, reframe elder, rescript mentor. And then you remember at the very beginning, I said, well, I usually go legacy, older, elder, mentor. Well, now with this way of looking at it, what's possible here is that I can reimagine being older. I can reframe being an elder, and I can rescript being a mentor, and using all of that in my the story of my legacy, my leave the legacy I intend to live. And as a professional, how do I take that forward? That's a great question, is because you gave it all as a professional. Now, what do you do with it as you move into your next 50? And how might you prepare for that and adopt a preparation approach and get a prevention mindset about taking care of yourself, the self-care that goes with it? So all of this sort of came to me this morning. Now, I appreciate I'm bringing a lot of it to leverage legacy today, but it just felt like sharing it would be important, and I wanted to sort of get it out. I'm also one who, while I'm a visual learner and I draw it, and if you saw my notes, you would see drawing aspects to my words. I actually take blank sheets and just use a visual language, shapes and diagrams and words, and draw things out and see how things unfold for me. And I wanted to bring a little bit that to you because it's my way of coming to go, oh, yeah, I'm starting to get an understanding, a comprehension. I'm starting to value this storyline, and thank you for listening in, watching, and pulling some of this together. And I will share some of the key notes in the show more notes of the video so that you can check them out. And I will put reference to the website, and there is a course that's going to be unfolding here probably in about 5-6 weeks. And I'll put a link where if you want to get notice for that course about this connection of older, elder, mentor, you can certainly subscribe and get first notice that is coming up, and then I would put it into more into the general domain, right? So you get first crack, and guess what? You get a bit of a discount to go with that. So I know if there's any questions that you might have, you can put them in the comments section, or you can use the contact page at wealthmovement.com. And just to remind you, wealth is WELLTH, movement.com. So with that, I'm going to sort of bring it to a close for Leverage Legacy, and say thank you for listening in to my 2 in the morning insights and how they unfolded in a way that I thought was very loving and beautiful. And it brought a lot of my own calmness and caring to myself, but certainly a very strong humbleness of what's possible and what I can share from a legacy point of view for the world, with the planet, and from the whole. So again, comments below, contact page on the website. Now, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go with leverage legacy next week. I might dive a little bit deeper into older and some of the issues that are forming for us. About a week or so ago, I dug into what are some of the issues that are happening for those who are 55 plus years young, around aging, and the story of the middle child, and this notion of fatigue, and what might that how that might be influencing your life. Remember that change transition, and how you might declare yourself an elder mentor to deal with older, and the story that you're bringing forward. So thanks very much, and take care.